Greetings and welcome to another read aloud session, read along session of one of the Jataka tales. The story that we are going to read together today is called A Man Named Trouble. That's the story we're working with today. So I'm going to set that one up for us so that we can jump right into it. Before we begin the story, we always like to take a nice cleansing breath just to come together consciously in this shared reading space. So wherever you are in the world, as you're reading along with us, feel free, feel comfortable, feel relaxed to either read in an upright position, or you're more comfortable reading laying down. Maybe where you are, it's late at night and you're just reading a good story before you fall asleep. Wherever you may be, I invite you to take a nice, deep, cleansing breath right now, just to settle into this shared space. So breathe in deeply. And relax your breath gently. Very nice. So again, welcome to A Man Named Trouble, the Kalakani Jataka. Let's see. Our characters for this story, we have the Buddha, Kalakani, friends, acquaintances, townspeople, Anathapindika, Bodhisatta as the treasurer. So all of these characters, you will see the names appear just as they are here. They will appear also in the text in red, written in red. And when you see the particular name of the character that you would like to read aloud for, then you go right ahead and read that text aloud. Or you can read along with me as the narrator. The idea being, of course, that you will experience the story through the eyes, through the perspective of whatever character you're reading for. So it's possible to choose one of the characters now as we start the story, and then you might come back into the story later, read it again, or another day, or read another one of the stories that's also posted on the channel. And just always choose a character for yourself or choose a narrator, and then read through the story as that particular character and just see what you draw from seeing that particular experience through the perspective of the character you're reading for. All of the Jataka tales represent the teachings of the Buddha. So whatever that life lesson is that the characters are experiencing in the story, that lesson can be closely associated with one of the teachings of the Buddha. So there is a folk saying that in order to understand the teachings of the Buddha, one only has to experience the Jataka tales. So here we are experiencing these stories and hoping that they will bring us closer to understanding these teachings of the Buddha. So let's see what we draw from the story. Here we go. It was while staying in Jetavana that the Buddha told this story about one of Anathapindika's friends, a man with the unhappy name of Kalakani, meaning trouble. The two had played together as children and had gone to the same school. As the years passed, however, Kalakani became extremely poor and could not make a living for himself, no matter what he did. In desperation, he approached Anathapindika, who welcomed him kindly and employed him to look after his property and to manage all of his business for him. From that time on, it was a common thing to hear someone shouting "trouble" each time a member of the household called him. One day, some of Anathapindika's friends and acquaintances came and said, "Sir, don't let this sort of thing go on in your house. It's enough to scare a yaka to hear such inauspicious speech as 'Come here, trouble,' 'Sit down, trouble,' or 'Have your dinner, trouble.' The man is a miserable wretch, dogged by misfortune. He's not your social equal. Why do you have anything to do with him? Nonsense, replied Anathapindika, firmly rejecting their advice. A name only denotes a man. The wise do not measure a man by his name. It is useless to be superstitious about mere sounds. I will never abandon the friend with whom I made mud pies as a child simply because of his name. Not long after that, Anathapindika went with many of his servants to visit a village of which he was headman. He left his old friend in charge. Hearing of the rich man's departure, a band of robbers decided to break into the house. That night, they armed themselves to the teeth and surrounded it. Kalakani had suspected that burglars might try something, so he stayed awake. As soon as he knew that the robbers were outside, he ran about noisily as though he were rousing the entire household. He shouted for one person to sound the conch and for another to beat the drum. Soon it seemed that the house contained a whole army of servants. When the robbers heard the din, they said to one another, "The house is not as empty as we thought it would be. The master must still be at home after all." They threw down their clubs and other weapons and fled. In the morning, the discarded weapons were found lying scattered outside the house. When the townspeople realized what had happened, they lauded Kalakani to the skies. If such a wise man hadn't been guarding the house, they said, those robbers would have walked in and plundered as they pleased. Anathapindika owes this good luck to his staunch friend Kalakani. As soon as Anathapindika returned from his trip, they told him the whole story. "My friends," Anathapindika answered, "this is the trusty guardian I was urged to get rid of. If I had taken your advice and sent him away, I would be a poorer man today. It's not the name, but the heart within that makes the man." In appreciation of his friend's services, he raised his wages. Thinking that this was a good story to tell the Buddha, Anathapindika went to the master and gave him a complete account. "This is not the first time, sir," the Buddha said, "that a man named Kalakani has saved his friend's wealth from robbers. The same thing happened in bygone days as well." Then, at Anathapindika's request, the Buddha told this story of the past. Long, long ago, when Brahmadatta was reigning in Varanasi, the Bodhisattva was the treasurer. He was famous and had a friend named Kalakani. At that time, everything was the same as it was in the story of Anathapindika. When the treasurer returned from the village and heard the news, he said to his friends, "If I had taken your advice and had gotten rid of my trusty friend, I would have been a beggar today. A friend is one who goes 7 steps to help. He who goes 12 can be called a comrade. Loyalty for a fortnight or a month makes one a relative. Long and steady dependability, a second self. How could I forsake my friend, Kalakani, who has always been so true?" Having concluded his story, the Buddha identified the birth. At that time, Ananda was Kalakani, and I was the treasurer of Varanasi. There we have it, the story of a man named Trouble. As always, let's take another deep cleansing breath just to put our seal on the story. Breathing in and releasing that breath gently. Each of the Jataka tales, again, represents some lesson that we can walk with in our lives. perhaps a different perspective or many different perspectives that we can walk with. And I invite you to do exactly that with this story, whether it's the idea of dependability, of being a friend, or of being such a loyal, close friend as to be a second self of someone that you care about, to do that which is good for that person, or whether it's the idea of not judging someone by their name or by something that appears to you on the surface, or if it's the idea of no matter what your name is, looking at what your experiences are and relating those experiences, as the Buddha did in this story, from different lifetimes, but having similar patterns occurring. So one can also draw from this the idea of karma. There is so much here, and I invite you to reread the story and to reread it from different perspectives as different characters, and whatever it is you draw from it, even if there is absolutely nothing that you consciously draw from the story, I invite you to read the words nonetheless in that spirit of having an open mind about what it possibly could be that you could draw from the story. So walk with it until we come together again for the next Jataka tale. I hope you will be well and be safe and keep reading aloud. Peace and blessings.